Live video podcast for people who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them. That's right, Jim and Rob overanalyze movies. Live here on the internet. Anyway, today we are going to be talking about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Really excited about digging into this one. Of course, Jim and I did do a parking lot reaction or a parking lot review. We've talked about it on social media, but today we'll be in the spoiler zone right away. And speaking of which, let's though start with where the heck are my show notes? Dove my show notes. Oh, there we are. Oh, heaven forbid they come up to me. Here we are. Okay. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. The IMDb logline is the people of Wakanda fight to protect their home from intervening world powers as they mourn the death of King T'Challa. Of course, directed by Ryan Coogler, returning. Written by Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole. Stars Letitia Wright. And also stars Lupita Nyong'o, Denai Guerrera, Winston Duke, Florence Kasumba, Dominique Thorne, Michaela Cole, Tenoch Huerta, Martin Freeman, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and of course, Angela Bassett. Let's get into the social nutrition checklist. Yeah, folks. Would it get a reframe stamp? No, it would not. That said, it is a union-made picture. And did it pass the Bechdel test? It kicked its ass. I actually think, Jim and I have talked about this, love to get your input, but I think we need something beyond the Bechdel test to talk about when there are two women of color, talking to each other without referencing a male character in the movie. We need that. Just as we have the Ayla test now, we need a test for that. Please either comment in the chat tonight or in a comment below if you're watching this on a replay. Let's get back to here. Folks, is there historicity here? No. I do have a couple of links, though, in the chat or in the description, just referring to Sean Chandler and Zach Mill and a couple other YouTubers, but I'll point those out later. I think that's about it. If you haven't already seen the movie, check out, and I'll put something over here to our spoiler-free parking lot review. Otherwise, I think it's time to bring in my co-host with the most, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty damn good myself.
I should change that a little. The Bombers just lost the Grey Cup, so I'm a little sad, but
are you a little bummed out?
To quote SCTV, it takes more than 19 beers to stop Guy Caballero. So I'm just kidding. It's 19 bullets, and I didn't have 19 beers. But it's a little.
I understand what you're
sad
saying.
Day here in Winnipeg, but we had a good run, so that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Toronto.
And here I am wearing my Bomber gear.
Yep,
Note the color scheme. All pointless. Jim, we didn't get a chance to talk much before, but a couple of items before we get started.
Sure.
One, I'm proposing we try an experiment today where we ditch the discussion on craft. And that is not that I don't think it's important. I think it's incredibly important. But I think it comes up more organically when we're talking about story anyway.
Yeah.
You know what? And it's one of those things. I also think that it takes up time where we could be talking about more important things, including the story, the heart of the story, and the meaning. And it is on a Sunday night. It's a school night. We're back in that world.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're good with that, I am going to we're going to be doing that. Another thing, and heck, I wanted to fudge. And you know what? It'll come to me later. Or it won't come to me at all. And well, it is what it is.
Sure.
Let me get our live chat going.
Who's with us?
If it decides to. Oh, there we go. Hey, you know how it is. And sometimes it's just like, I don't want to work.
Yeah.
Gizmo no go.
Technology.
It can be rather irritating, but
Yeah.
I think we've got something here. Bear with me. Cancel that. And do we? Yes, we do. Oh, there we go. All right, we got our chat going. Let's say hello before we get into this one. Before we get into the spoiler zone, let's say hello to everyone. And first of all, we've got Ahmed, our man in Kuwait City, Jelly Duck 100. Good to see you here.
Hello, sir.
And he does, and I'm sure this will come up. Of course, a lot of what drove this film was the real life passing of Chadwick Boseman. And so for those who aren't mourning the bomber's loss, why don't we move forward, Jim? And if you're cool with that, I'm gonna get right into the spoiler zone. Bum bum bum.
And Jelly Duck, we're coming in strong, are we? Let us know in the chat.
Audio, yes. Are you hearing both of us, and are you hearing us loud and clear? Actually, you know what? I do have a way to monitor.
Jelly Duck, we're coming in strong, are we? Is this thing on? Let us know in the chat.
Audio, yes.
That old standby line.
We are coming in because I can monitor it. We are good. We're good.
Good.
Huzzah! All right. Where the heck are we now? All right, we're in the spoiler zone, and we're jumping right into story. Jim, let me. You know what? A couple of comments I saw on other channels. One was Zach Milne said it in his review, which I will. There's a link in the description, folks. I love the way he put it. He says there's so many references here to other things going on, like in the TV series and that he says at times it seems to, it gets loaded down. And if a story is a bit of a bridge from the start to the, to the other side, it says it gets a little loaded down in the middle. It doesn't break. Another thing, Sean Chandler, he did a great review of all of Phase 4. Basically a great high-level summary of all of what's happened in Phase 4, but his title was the best. Let me see if I can't pull it up here.
Sure, yeah.
It was just such a great title. How did he put it? Bear with me.
Sure. Yeah, I actually meant to look up
he put
Phase 4 and see exactly what movies were all in there. Yeah.
How he put it, great moments, but unfocused. And I don't think this movie was unfocused, but I think at times it was like that camera might kind of wander off a little.
Mhm.
What do you think about what do you think about those summaries, like the summary for
Yeah.
Phase 4 and and kind of that talk of a lot of other things going on in this film that may not have been relevant to the core story?
Yeah, I listen occasionally to CBC's Pop Chat, which is a show on the radio on Canada Broadcasting Corporation, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and also they have a podcast form that's a little longer, and they had some things to say. One of which was you didn't need the Martin Freeman, Julie Louise Dreyfus story part of it too. So that's I think that maybe goes along with what you're saying too. Is just a little extra added thing, but it sort of still grafts it to the other action. Why it's part of this 30 movie MCU universe at this point. So and it was just a very small part of the movie too. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on. uh I think that's part of the I guess the load you carry when you're in the like. It's certainly not a standalone movie, right? It's very much not. It's probably the least standalone movie you can imagine, because it's sort of built on the presence or absence of Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa, of course. So that you kind of an occupational hazard, I guess, to have it sort of loaded like that. Fair points, but I thought
Oh,
so the challenge was to see if they could overcome that. I think they did. I mean, I think they were able to take this into a place like it's not just a bridge, or it's like, oh god, we got to deal with this now.
oh, and that, don't get me wrong, that's not what
Yeah,
Zach said.
yeah.
Zach is, I'm saying if a film is a bridge, if a story is a bridge,
Yeah.
one side is the beginning, the other side the end. He felt
Mhm.
it might have been a little weighed down and a little in the middle with the other
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. I mean, probably a valid comment. I didn't feel it impeded my enjoyment of
Yeah.
the story at all, and I don't think it made it blocky or. At no point did it feel like a chore, or we're always
Mhm.
talking about side quests and side journeys that get thrown at the characters. There's no part in this movie where I was like, oh, the next 20 minutes is going to be boring.
Yeah.
I was there for the entire ride there, and it's a 2 hour 40-minute movie, by the
Yeah.
way. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you. Like, it was only when I saw Zach Milne's review that I'm like, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Um, that said, I never once felt this film was, oh my God, we've watched films, Jim, where I'm like,
Yeah.
what? No, it should have been over. Like, what do you mean there's another 20 minutes?
Yeah.
The movie's over. Like,
Mhm.
they should have just shut it down there. It's like a whole other extra act. At no time did this feel like it. It still seemed to have meaning to the film.
Yeah.
Even Martin Freeman's character, like his role in it, did not feel just shoehorned in.
Mhm.
Because of they don't just have one. Letitia Wright's character, these folks don't have just one opponent. There's internal conflict. There's conflict with the regular powers, the United States and France getting a particular shot.
Yeah.
Which was, I thought it was like kind of a nice little, cool little scene there
Yeah.
near the beginning. But I didn't feel like anything was shoehorned in. Like
Mhm.
he seemed to have a thing to do.
Mhm.
I would, though, and here's another question asking you: was Dominique Thorne's she played Ironheart, the
Mhm.
scientist, and of course all that. Oh, this is one thing I do not like, a standard superhero movie trope: the genius scientist with no training who can just through their own genius it's like, it's nah.
Yeah.
But do you think she actually added enough, or was she more like a walking MacGuffin.
Well, they didn't sort of.
They are setting her up for her own series.
Yeah. Yeah. She wasn't bad. Like, sometimes when they introduce a character like that, it feels forced and it doesn't feel organic. She'll go through her course of the day and say, "Hey, Bob. Hey, Joe." Oh, she's got a community. You're supposed to think, right? Like, she's part of something else. And yeah, I mean, it sort of. She didn't do a bad job establishing her character, but I think they probably could have done a little more. I mean, again, 2 hour, 40-minute movie. And there was sort of for as smart as she is, and I said to you during the movie, where our queen of Wakanda said, get back, child. And I said to you, or don't listen. It's just like,
yeah,
like just follow the instructions. You've not been here before.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of about about her too, the inability to read a particular situation, which you think, that's a social thing and she's more mechanical, whatever. But yeah, I mean, she didn't do a bad job. I would not have protested if she had been a little more developed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Look at this,
but that's
Jim.
A good question. That's a good question.
We must be doing something right. The bots are coming after us.
There we go.
We'll be don't worry, folks. We'll be dealing with this this particular individual. But I did want a digital. I did want a a digital record.
I think that's from the last movie we did, the brother of the nurse in Passchendaele. He's sending us messages. Hot sister. Oh yeah, that's right. She's a nurse.
Let's come back out. I mean, sure. You agree with me. I still feel as positive about this movie, even after a couple of weeks of, sometimes you come out of the movie, that was pretty damn good. Later,
we did see it on the first Thursday, folks. So that's
and we saw it in IMAX.
Yes,
which I'm not sure really added that much to my experience. I know it added enough to our ticket price, but what do you think? What do you think makes for a great superhero movie?
I think a challenge, a strong enemy, one that's earned, or a strong, I guess challenge and enemy are the same thing, but something that needs to be overcome that's earned, I think, and the development too.
But I think that's every movie.
Yeah.
What about a superhero movie? Like, what makes, like it is its own, sort of subgenre of crime.
Yeah.
What do you need for a superhero movie to kind of elevate it?
I think we were talking, the word that I
threw out. And that's for everyone in the chat too.
The word I threw out was operatic. So there's a sort of a largesse. I think there's a certain largesse that you need.
Big
you
arc.
wouldn't just have, and sort of big, not necessarily set pieces, or not everything has to be, lit by fireworks, but, like some kind of sense of scope and scale that's more dramatic. I remember when I was a kid leaving, not that it's a superhero movie, but I remember as a kid leaving the drive-in with my single mom, and she's driving us home, and I'm like, "Oh, Star Wars is nothing like my life." Like
I
not picking up any of the danger or the sort of existential threats to Luke Skywalker, but anyhow,
Well, no, I think that's a great point, Jim. That operatic treatment of good versus evil. Like, it's capital G good, capital, it's also one of the criticisms of superhero movies and the crime genre in general is like, it's always good guys versus bad guys. Although I think the MCU has done its best to kind of add a little subtlety to that Manichaean, you
Yeah.
know, uh, conflict of opposites. Anything else you think? Like, let, yes, a villain,
Yeah.
the super villain has to be equal, if not even greater than the heroes. But what about that superhero? What makes for a great superhero?
I think and they tried it in different scales. Like, quite famously, Spider-Man was an answer to Superman, right? Years later, of course, is the sense that there's something behind the superhero, female or male, powering them along. That they were standing for something, a community,
A
and in
cause,
a cause, an entire
a
planet, or
core cause.
just
Yeah,
maybe just Brooklyn, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man,
yeah.
right? And so, and that's done again with on various scales as well. But that's something that they have a raison d'etre, I guess
Yeah.
is what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm digging that. That makes sense to me. Yeah, that they have a core cause, a very, they almost always know why they were originally there. And although
Mhm.
a superhero will lose their way maybe, it is when they come back to
Yeah.
that original cause, that original touchstone. Okay, I think we've got we've got the start of something there,
Some elements.
worthy
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
return to.
Hmm.
But okay, with this in mind, do we have the makings of a great superhero movie here?
Yeah. Do we? I mean, the T'Challa died obviously in between this one, or at the very start of this one. Um, and so I don't think we were given enough time for the focus to be all on the new. Like, well, I guess we just call
Yeah,
her Shuri,
we're in
but
this we're
yeah,
in the
like
spoiler zone.
I don't know if she
We
has her own character name that's beside her own name, but
well, no,
um,
she is the Black Panther.
yeah, yeah. So
That's it.
Shuri,
Yeah,
yeah, I
Shuri
don't think we
is the Black
spent
Panther.
spend enough time with her yet. It comes on fairly. It's almost like that in between period, that adjustment period. I mean,
I
we'll get into it more about in the message section, but there's a lot of like post T'Challa. A lot of this movie deals with the energy, what you do with that energy post T'Challa, and
well,
where that goes, how you deal with it, etc.
you know what? I'm wondering if this is unlike so many others where it's like not another origin story.
Mm.
This is an origin story
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is perfectly understandable and it makes sense.
Hmm.
Do you know what do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
that's what we're watching here.
yeah.
Is an origin story. And I don't do I think it's a great superhero movie? I don't. Um it's a really good one though. Uh
Yeah.
but I think it does have some of the makings, in a way she discovers like this is something MCU has really understood really well and they pull it out through that character, but why are they there? It's her
Mm.
core conflict. It's her core internal thing. And I think this is something we talked about it a bit uh, in the non-spoiler review, but Letitia Wright did a great job from, in a way, being a bit of a sidekick, the kid's sister, providing some of that comic. Like she wasn't a comic relief character, but there
Yeah,
was some of that.
yeah.
To having to take on this and take on this role, now all of a sudden you're the dramatic center.
Hmm.
And she did a great job, but I think that's because Marvel and Coogler really understand we gotta show this through character and what they're really about. That their actual strength, it's not the suit, it's their commitment to that core cause. And I think they really did that well, because that is her struggle.
Yeah.
Do you take on the mask? Do you have what it takes? And why are you doing it? And that, I think, is something they do really well. So I think it's got the makings of. I think the villain was pretty damn good.
Yes.
Namor. Let me ask you this though. Namora. Boy, oh boy, I'm too old to have a celebrity crush, or a character crush, let's call it. But I got a bit of a character crush on Namora, played by Mabel.
Mabel, yeah.
Where the heck? Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
Where the heck is she? Mabel. Mabel Cadena plays Namora, Mexican actor. But it does at times feel like, hey, this is like the first Black Panther.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not necessarily a bad thing. And it's not a copy. Like sometimes where we really are, like Venom. It's like basically, so we're watching the first movie again, just different.
Oh no. Peter Parker's classmates are in trouble. Again. At a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Or origin story. Oh, good. I get to watch Uncle Ben die for the 27th time. Cliff Robertson, Martin Sheen. Who else do we got? It's
that that he gets the girl and has to give her up in some way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Peter.
I don't know. Like, is that even worthy of exploration, or is that like? Because this gets into themes too that I think they're using Black Panther for, so to kind of have this as this kind of villain you sympathize with, villain with a point.
Yeah.
Seems to be part of the storytelling of the Black Panther part of the MCU.
Yeah. It's funny. Years ago, when my son was still young, we were sort of going over all the points of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man ones, and he was a little one at that point. And I said, the first villain, well, he was a scientist. Second villain, well, he was into science. The third villain, well, there's his background is science. And it's like, wait a sec, what are they trying to say? But this one, I mean, they do a good job at not being all kind of mustache twisty and that kind of thing.
And just hell bent on global domination.
Yeah, that vague kind of goal.
That is interesting. You do, and maybe this is one of those things where maybe it is time to move into theme. Into the meaning. But before that, I think it is time to beg for a like, a subscribe, and perhaps a ringing ding of that bell.
As I very sneakily lean over to pick it up.
You'd mentioned Spider-Man. Well, it's going back to those as 60s kind of a mistrust, not 50s worry about nuclear power, but a 60s sort of, what are they doing in those labs?
Yeah.
He was in a lab. He is a science geek, but these villains, this idea that I think 60s America, and let's say the 60s, the Western world, the 60s and 70s, we're becoming comfortable with the fact that, science isn't necessarily a force for good,
Hmm.
that it's automatically progress. While
Yeah.
it can be, like Peter Parker is an exemplar of just a keen all-American kid.
Hmm.
Move into this film. It's one of its core, or let's say for the Black Panther, one of its core themes is this, which reflects our time, which is the subjugation of most of the world by
Yeah.
colonial imperialist colonialism and settler colonialism, and the horrible ramifications of that,
Hmm.
and certainly an insecurity in the United States, especially the United States, but we suffer it here in Canada. This idea, it's like, oh, these people might want to get revenge. It's like, maybe they do. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, you certainly see it in some, Jeff Barnaby's work. You know,
Yeah.
uh, um, a righteous demand for justice, uh,
Hmm.
which can also, to the person who is, doing wrong, it's like, oh, you just want revenge. Um, and I think that's part of what's going on in these films. And so if we look at Namor through that lens, it makes a little more sense,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, and that is reaction to all this is not all that hysterical. It's like he's all in and he's wanting to hit first, but
Mm-hmm.
you can sort of sympathize with it. Where the sort of the complexity works is that two sort of non-colonial powers at each other's throats, and then that's a whole. It's kind of interesting. It's a whole brand new kind of fight. A new kind of front, I guess, in these kinds of wars.
Well, and you do have the CIA,
Hmm.
and Julia Louise Dreyfus's character, which is, what is her name?
Some long and regal sounding.
For Julia Louise Dreyfus?
Valentina Allegra de Font. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's the De Fontaine, another,
Yeah.
because you want to get a shot in at the French.
Yeah, exactly. They really have it in for the French.
But I think there is, that, let's say, that acknowledgement that a lot of these countries don't have friends, they have interests. And she is a pure representation of, well, if they're fighting, that's how we can get.
Yeah.
That idea, and it's always really difficult in these films, that lend themselves so well to, there's good and there's evil, to actually say, well, maybe there's actually a little more to it. And they're trying, I think, with her, is that idea. It's like, on your side, you've got people who really do view the world as a zero-sum game.
Mhm.
And if they have something that you don't have, they're winning. And you're a threat. They are a threat to you, and your way of life, which, though, correct me if I'm wrong, it also seemed like another theme that came up, that idea of resources. And of course, let's say the Western world's shameless, we like your stuff. No, not your village. What's under your village? So anyway, well, we're just going to move your village over here.
Yeah.
But there's nothing
Look,
we
a
can
dog.
do there.
Let's bring in the drilling rig.
That seems to be one of the sub themes, which, I gotta start giving these films more and more credit. This is actually, it's there, you
Yeah,
know.
and that's one thing that sort of I felt was kind of chilling, especially seeing all the stuff that the Russians are up to with Ukraine and other countries too, is that because of the vibranium, the amount of that crap that Wakanda is going to have to deal with on all kinds of levels, is just I sort of became fictional country, I realize, but I
Yeah.
became aware of it in a story sense. It's like, man, they got to constantly, it's not just one country and another country or one country and their neighbor, but they're going to have to be, this is a forever fight with them. This is going to be, they're
Oh,
going to have to be forever on their guard.
yeah.
There's an early scene where they do catch the French mercenaries that are trying to steal from them, but it was almost a setup
Well,
because they
yeah,
realized that what was going on.
and
But
they may have been mercenaries, but they were agents of the French government.
yes, yeah, yeah,
They
yeah. I should
yeah,
be careful about
yeah, they
my,
were
my
like
qualifications here, but
yeah,
yeah,
that seemed to be made clear in that first or
yeah,
in one of
absolutely,
those early scenes. Je vous
yeah.
en prie.
The French team
Yeah,
was sort of just
yeah,
so that's something that this country is gonna like the level of bullshit and the level of just like high and low stuff that they're gonna have to deal with is gonna be a constant
yeah,
thing for them until they're I mean it's the vibranium that sort of defines them, which is
yeah.
in a bit kind of sobering in a way as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah. Well, and it does kind of allude to um our current times. This may
Mm.
be going a little too far. I have to do some research on what Kugler and Cole were thinking. But you could look at that need to find more of this stuff. It
Mm.
just is we're scraping the earth for lithium, rare earth like all these things
Yeah.
that like it's all of a sudden it's a new rush because we're going to electrify, we're going to run battery operated cars. We're not actually going to deal with the real issue, which is we got to get into trains. We got to have less rolling metal on our roads. That is what's bankrupting us. No,
Mm.
we'll just batteries. And so all of a sudden, instead of oil, we'll go to Africa and grind metals out of them, And so
Yeah.
I think there may be there is that illusion in this film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Angela Bassett's character, Queen Ramonda, she refers to that looking for our resources,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, as Canadians, we're very familiar with this. We just, we moved the Indigenous folks off and said, yep, we're open for business. Dig whatever you want.
There's nothing wrong with Canadian mining companies. They're all friendly and nice. No,
Yeah, absolutely. Done nothing wrong ever.
not a thing.
Uh, what about, is there any other, like, I mean, again, you got the classic superhero stuff, good versus evil. I think there is, especially in these films, a bit of a questioning of that assumption that just because you're the one, that you are a force for good, that you're incorruptible, and that that it doesn't get complicated. Is there anything else though we're missing that we haven't talked about?
Well, I think the two other, like on a more personal level, the two other big themes that it deals with, or messages that it deals with, are grief, obviously, and the coping of all the deaths around them, and including T'Challa, but not limited to him, um, and and also legacy. I think legacy is a big thing, and that's most cemented in. And what I really liked is sort of towards the end of the movie is that Shuri goes through the ceremony, the same ceremony that T'Challa did.
Yeah.
That they ingest the purple flower and the juice of the purple flower, and that takes them to another plane of existence where they're spoken, where they meet one of the people that have gone
Relatives.
before them.
Yeah.
Yeah. In this case, she doesn't get T'Challa or T'Challa's dad whose name escapes me right now, but it's similar to that. She gets Killmonger, and
Yeah.
that was kind of a brilliant point that I thought, A, use the things around you. B, for God's sake, let's not bring Chadwick Boseman back on the screen, in a sort of an
Yeah.
Oliver Reed and Gladiator situation where you graft his face onto an extra or something.
Yeah.
So that they avoided that. Just use what's around you, and it was, and he really uh, injected a little bit of that sort of crazy, strong, mad energy into in the last half, and so she's left with the people that leave. It's not just good people that leave legacies. It's everyone leaves a legacy, and Killmonger left a legacy, and
Yeah.
T'Challa left a legacy, and
And they
it's
both
left to
left
her.
conflicted legacies that she's
Yeah.
got to synthesize.
She does, and
she
it's
does,
all on her, and that's the sort of you can see her sort of take a instead of the high five and little sister who's a tech whiz, she gets pretty like it's like the ring in Lord of the Rings, like it causes a heaviness to her, and it gives her character something pretty extreme to deal with. So I think that was super well handled.
Yeah.
And considering all the things that the filmmakers had to deal with, I thought it was a great choice. It was good to see Michael B. Williams back in that role. And yeah,
Michael B.
actually, oh, sorry. What did I say? Michael B. Williams. Sorry. It's the 19 beers that are getting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really, I think, added to the theme. Like and it wasn't just a hearkening back to the first one, but it was like, you have to deal with this because
he was perfect
this is out there
at that
too.
moment for her.
Yeah,
because he at that crisis moment for the character, that personal inner crisis.
Yeah,
he is the one. It is her. What is kind of it's her going into the tree. To find out, an Empire Strike, a great moment in Empire Strikes Back. What is, that she has got to go face herself. A thing hopefully we'll see in Dune when it comes back next year.
Oh yes, yeah.
Part 2. And I'm wondering also. Yeah, because she has to mature. She does have to synthesize these views. She has to, and it's a great, and I think Winston Duke, his role as M'Baka. Is it M'Baka? M'Baku, thank you. His role is also another great,
yes,
kind of coming to a theme about leadership and what do you do in victory and in loss, and how do you and even a great moment that I totally bought. It's like, well, what is your heart telling you? Which way does your heart lean? Because there's this guy being, and again, a great answer to some of the more toxic masculinity kind of things where, I mean, superhero films are really bad for this, where you feel him in service to her. At no time is he's not, it's just a perfect moment of, well, what does your heart tell you? And I just want to know what your heart is saying. And that's what I'm here for. I've been asked to do this, and I'm here for you. And you really feel that. And he is such a great example of what a leader can be to her, and that she has some tough choices to come. And even by the very end, when she could let her anger and her, again, I'm thinking now, Return of the Jedi, she can lose it. And she doesn't. And she finds, unlike T'Challa, who couldn't, he walked away in the Civil War. She is the one who can, faced with her enemy, could totally get revenge, all this stuff, and says, no, I have a responsibility to, there's a larger world that I'm a part of, and I have a responsibility to it. But I also have a responsibility to my own moral, my cause, my why am I here, and I am responsible to that. And so she finds that middle road, that, you know what, hey, as long as you do this, she forges peace. Now, of course, then we find out later that just like he's like, nope.
Yeah.
He's playing, Namor is Julia Louis-Dreyfus. They would understand each other completely.
Yes.
You know, but like he's got a longer, I can't say a con, but he's got a longer game, you know?
Yeah.
But she, it's just a great thematic end. And speaking of rituals, it's the ending ritual that I thought was the most important in the final scene. Again, going back to that theme of grief, that meaning of grief, and that you have to let go of your grief. It doesn't mean you've let go of your memory of that person. It doesn't mean that at times you won't think and be sad that there is something lost, but you have to acknowledge the loss and then let go of the thing you're trying to hold on to, because you're only going to wreck it. And that moment with Lupita Nyong'o's character and apparently her nephew, because, well, we'll skip. I'm saving that for final final thoughts, my comments on that. But I think that was a great final, and even that M'Baku is the one who's like, looks like he's going to be king. She is the Black Panther. He will be king, which I thought was just like that, a twist that I'm like, oh, I'm good with this. I feel good about this. He is the matured leader. She is the sword of Wakanda, let's say. But that even she has that moment with family that she's able to let go. You know, I thought was, again, going back to that theme you talk about, well, with a legacy, literally. But that theme of grief, that exploration of grief and how we manage it or mismanage it.
No, I mean, there's a lot going on, but I particularly like the way they incorporated. I mean, not only did they deal with legacy in that way, but they sort of had it as a suspense point, like which way is she going to go with it? And it wasn't like at one point when she was fighting with Namor at the end, I thought, are they going to kill off both characters? Because they could very well. I mean, I'm not familiar with how deep the comics go, but I just thought this would be if you're going to do something that crazy, now would be the time to do it. But you know, they went in a different direction. But even up until the end, they were like, which way is she going to go?
Yeah.
You know, is she going to, because she got heavy there and she was getting angry and vengeful, and she no longer has the counsel of T'Challa or the Queen or, you know, T'Chaka. I just looked it up. The father's name is T'Chaka. You know, she's on her own, and except for the you know, the people immediately around her, like M'Baku, for instance.
The one in the council, you know.
Yeah, in the council, but they used that, I thought, really well as
on the council. It's like,
yeah,
nope, council. They, you know, that sort of cheap politician jibe where it's like, they just talk and can't make a decision and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
you know. Anyway,
the condo board. You know, we don't like that lawn furniture. Get it out of here. Oh! But
fix the roof. I don't know. That's expensive. Can we get another quote?
They even use the legacy as a point of suspense, which is a brilliant move by Coogler et al. And company. So, I was there for all of it.
Yeah. No, ditto. and even after this conversation, Jim, I'm finding it even has more subtlety, more meaning. It's still not a class conscious film. It's like, and I really, I need to explore that further. But it's got heft. It's got weight. I think it's got the makings of, and maybe that's another thing we could add to what makes for a great superhero movie, that it's got thematic heft. It can't just be, well, it can't just be like, you look at Star Wars. Yeah, good versus evil. And although there's some allusions to the Vietnam War, it's so not obvious that you need to be told, But what I think is that there's a real respect for the themes in a big operatic sense, but still no, we mean it. The director means it. It's not just and then we'll have a bad guy, and like just some bad B movie, from the 50s. Yeah. All right.
And his origin story was interesting as well. Like, and there was the anger there and the righteousness, and it was backed up. But
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about Ryan Coogler?
No, Namor. Like the
Namor. No. Like, there's that commitment to that. That villain with a point.
Yeah.
And not just, you do this. You don't feel that with this villain. You don't feel it with Killmonger, where it's, you do this, like a justification. What about him? What about you? You don't feel that at all. It's the villain with a real point. I think these are even better villains in some ways on that level than... who the heck was it? Thanos, which I never really, I got that Marvel believes it, but I was like, we're not growing too much. We just need less of us. We need to make choices. It's not, that's that, like, from the 60s and 70s, the population bomb. It's like, which is always, it really actually just racist. It's really code for those Chinese are having all those babies,
Malthusian.
Yes.
Malthusian villain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm bad because I'm strong.
Listen, before we move forward, we're getting into the denouement here. Let me ask you what do you tell us what we're going to be watching next week? It's a Does It Hold Up, if memory serves.
It is end of the month, so we're going to be looking at the old Christmas classic. Yes, we're getting into there. It'll be a month from Christmas. A Christmas Story, which is actually got a new chapter out recently, but we're looking at the original Christmas Story. Darren McGavin et al.
And we're going to, ask that question. Does it hold up, this 1980s film that I don't know about you, Jim. I really enjoyed this when it came out. Like, it seemed to have all these weird makings of a smart-ass classic, like very much of the same world that SCTV, that generated SCTV and some of the best of SNL,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to watching the tongue on the pole scene again, because that's happened to all of us.
Yes,
and that it's just the worst. But anyhow, it's a classic. There was actually just up the road there. They've moved now, but they used to every year they had a gartered leg lamp, and they would put that in the window for their Christmas decorations, so a la the movie. So that was kind of a neat never seen that before in Christmas decorations, but it was cool.
I have an announcement, Jim. I almost forgot. This is going to be a podcast. I did for last week's video, for last week's video, I did generate it also as an audio-only podcast. It's on Spotify, it's on Google Podcasts, it's on Anchor, and I keep adding more services. So, you know what, you should be able to find it, but I will have a link to, if you're more of an audio-only person, I'll have a link to this podcast in the pinned comment once I've got it put up. I do a bit of audio cleaning and tweaking, and that'll be there. And of course, if you subscribe to that, you can get last week's. What did we do last week again, Jim?
Passchendaele.
Passchendaele, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyway, let's get back to this. And what are we giving Mr. Coogler? Is it a pass? Is it a fail?
I'd give him an A. Yeah, pass, number one. But yeah, I'd give him. Yeah, he was dealt a. Let's not forget, it's a human life here, but he was dealt a pretty crappy hand with what happened to his. And apparently, this was he had already written a script and everything else too for Chadwick Boseman. So I think he sort of pulled something pretty remarkable out, and further to what makes a great superhero story, I would argue that this is one of the more unique movies in the Marvel output so far. Is that it really is unlike a lot of the. I mean, it's still got some of the same beats, but it's quite a different one. And there is an origin story in it as well, but it's quite a different movie, I think, from the others necessarily.
Yeah.
It's a real difference, different kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. First, yeah, definitely an A. I agree with you as well. And it shows both his skills, also the casts, that because all reports are that they, never mind the, oh wow, we don't have this person we've built this thing around, but that we don't have this man who was a part of our lives. And so they're processing their grief as they are working on this film that brings that up and discusses that. This would be one of those where I try and avoid cast interviews and even a lot of director interviews. I think they're, for the most part, pretty self-serving promotional horseshit. That said, I would be interested in seeing some on this. I do think, I agree with you, Jim. I think this one has a flavor, just as Black Panther did, that is perhaps Coogler-esque. It's another thing in Marvel's favor, the MCU's favor, that they do know when to, okay, we got to let the guy tell the story. If we really want something good, especially like his, Feige's core group, affluent white people. Yeah. Maybe we don't stick our nose too far in this one.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think people would act that way. Really? You're upset about that?
Actually, never mind. Yeah. No notes.
Yeah. I mean, you're right though. Like, A with an asterisk. I mean, a good one. We need to keep in mind, not just those logistical challenges, but they do. It's the, hey, can you get a reference to this? Can you use this person here? Because it's got to fit into their the future of Marvel. And so, I think we can, it's still an A effort, but I think we also can acknowledge some of the things Coogler had to work through. While he gave us this, him and a whole bunch of other people. It's not like he's there going, which chord should I get for this? And I don't like that color. Well, I'm sure he said a lot of that, but anyway, let's final thoughts, my friend. Here's one for you.
Sure.
I gotta admit, I'm like kind of rolling my eyes a little on the whole. We what do you mean? Lupita Nyong'o's character had T'Challa's kid, you know, Nakia, you know, and I'm like, what? What?
I mean,
I thought that was, you know, it's like, oh, I get it. They got to think 10 years from now. It's like, you know, we got to have another one of these.
yeah.
All these people get old or they want too much money. We can slip someone else into this role.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of makes me think. Like, obviously, her character's heart was broken with the passing of T'Challa, and then she went away and just sort of disappeared. So I'm sort of thinking she was like, is Wakanda toxic on a certain level, or she just, and then she went away and,
back
and
to
she
that
sort of
grief idea.
Yeah, and it might have just been hiding from that because she goes to
here's
Haiti.
the thing: she went away before he died.
That's true too. Yeah.
Well before.
Yeah,
she stayed away when he died.
Yes.
You know. Yeah. And
So
obviously the mother knew.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
that's
the
true,
mother must have known, and you know, yeah, you know what, it just doesn't ring true to me, and it'd be interesting if they do a la sitcom, and it's like, well, what kid? No idea what you're talking about. You know,
it was.
What do you mean that character had a sister? Don't remember that. Prove it.
Yeah, it was underdeveloped, that whole sort of. By the way, I had a kid. You know, I was pregnant for 9 months, and there's no pictures of me, and you didn't know, and I didn't contact you, and this is you know. So I mean, yeah, that was a little bit underdeveloped. There's other things too. Like, I feel that T'Chaka, and I believe that character passed. The actor playing that character passed away too, but his character obviously dies in one of the Avengers movies. But I think it was
Civil War.
Civil War,
Civil War, yeah.
But there's not any kind of hearkening back to him. Like, he's completely cut out of the situation, and he's the same generation as Queen Ramonda, so he's technically not that far back. But Shuri,
they kind of
closed.
They closed his loop when T'Challa had to go back and challenge his ancestors in that ceremony.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah,
but
I
like one
they
little
had a
bit,
nice
like
little...
but it would be nice to hear his name. Even, I mean, I forgot it. I had to look it up back again. There's several things. I mean, there's several aspects of logic and science that killer whales in fresh water, and Wakanda having the big boat and thinking it's a good idea to attack the Talocan with
where the hell did that come from?
One boat, that's who thought that? But anyway, so it's not perfect, but story wise and emotionally, I think
like some of the other
sort of
things,
got there.
But that's what I mean, though, is I actually think this is the one thing where you pick at a superhero movie enough and it all falls apart.
Well, yeah.
I am not picking at it for that. I'm like kind of that took me out of the story. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean he's and it's also the gizmos. Well, I kind of expect that. I think that is also part of a superhero movie. Either great gadgets or great powers, or better both. Here's another interesting thing. Although Batman's tried it, and I think from in the comics, has tried to do it. This is the one superhero. I shouldn't say the one. I suspect there are others, but it's certainly in the MCU, from what I'm aware of, or even in the comics, where it's like, no, Black Panther is a role, and that the person dies in real life. That they get old and the role has to be passed on, and not automatically to like that there's an earning of it, and I think that's really cool about this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up there, Mr. Chaboyko?
I think that the one thing I wanted to add was the smartest thing that they did with this movie is they built it, the first one, around a really great ensemble. Like Angela Bassett is the queen. She could be my queen any day. M'Baku is a great, at first glance, he's not very layered, but he really is. And there's other characters throughout, throughout the family and the different members of the guard and things like that. Just a really great ensemble, really great characters that you could sort of lean back on, and then they have things that happen to them, consequential things that happen to some of them in this movie, and so they're not just placeholders. They're genuinely well developed, I think, characters, and I think that's the smartest thing that they did with that first movie, is that they could sort of lean on the rest of the cast for this one.
Yeah. No, I agree. You know what? We'll come back to that one. I think it might something to think about. Do we come back to superhero movies, or maybe we use a comparison of the DCEU? Comparing it to this to explore some of these things further. Another one thing we did not talk about, which I enjoyed, was the post-credit scene, or the credit scene, where they actually rescue poor Martin Freeman.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the white colonizer in chains.
Yeah.
Which is a good bit. But I'm kind of curious. It's like, what are they going to do with this character? They're keeping him, obviously.
Yeah.
It
was in there on purpose. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was almost like unfinished business, and they're like, what? And then they show that.
Yeah. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I think her character's, she's going to be a bigger villain. I think they're almost, and who knows, that may be it, is for Phase 5 or whatever model they're using. Wonder if they're going to start doing it in Roman numerals. But maybe she becomes an even bigger villain. Maybe the longer, bigger arch villain.
Yeah.
But they got more to do with her, and so Martin Freeman's his character's going to be a part of that. White colonizer in chains. It was a good moment, and a great moment of where I love the way Freeman can play it. Where it's funny. Can you get me out of here?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Kind of like
okay, everybody. You know what? Looks like I don't think we actually have anyone watching right now, which is great, which is fine. But we did have people popping in and out over the course of this live stream. And want to say a special shout out to Jelly Duck 100, who in Kuwait City is probably at work now, as he should.
Yeah, exactly.
And thank you all very much for it, whether you are here watching, lurking, popping in and out, or you are listening to this on the replay. Just want to say thank you very much. Remind you, next week at 9:45 p.m. Central Standard Time, Coordinated Universal Time -6, we will be looking at A Christmas Story. And of course, if you are listening to this on the podcast, there'll be links where you can subscribe to this on YouTube if you want to check it out live and join the chat. It is the best chat on the internet. I think that's about it, Jim?
That seals it.
All righty.
Sounds good.
Goodbye, everybody.
Go Canada. On to the next sport.